Hi friends, it's been a bit since I've made a YouTube video talking to a camera. I'm going to have to relearn to do all this again because I want to make a video every week for NaNoWriMo, and I might as well start with Preptober. My overall theme for National Novel Writing Month this year is going to be trying new things, including documenting it with video, but also I'm going to try and see if I can do something that's not science fiction or fantasy, because I've done one of those two, I think, just about every year, at least every year that I've won for sure. So I'm going to try to not do science fiction or fantasy this year, and we're going to see how that goes. I've also been playing around with the idea of writing in third person, which is a little bit different for me, at least for fiction. Of course, I'm pretty used to academic writing at this point, but at least in fiction, I have been very much ingrained in the method of really embodying a character, getting inside their head, and telling the story from their point of view. So it's going to be a little bit different, I think, to go with a third person narrative. I'm going to try my best. But of course, it's NaNoWriMo, so I could just switch in the middle if it gets too laborious. But it's just something that I've been thinking about trying. Another writing oriented idea I've had is I think it could be pretty cool to incorporate verse a little bit more. I'm pretty comfortable in prose, but as a musician and as someone who is kind of a fan of poetry, I think it would be cool to find ways to bring in that style of writing into a novel. I've got a few ideas about how I might do it, like maybe if I do wind up going the fantasy route, maybe they'll uncover some ancient writings in verse. But if I don't do fantasy, I'll find some way to bring verse into it. Another way this year is going to be different for me is I am planning rather than writing by the seat of my pants like I normally do, partially because I actually have time to plan this year, but also partially because I kind of want to do things differently, as I said. And if I just write whatever I feel like in the moment and keep on doing that for 50,000 words, it's probably going to wind up being similar to what I've done in the past. And as I'm trying to do things differently, having a plan for what's going to be different might be useful for me. So in that vein, I'm going to need to have a plot decided on by November 1st. Really, I'd like to get it done a bit before then, but right now I'm kind of doing a depth first search approach where I am coming up with ideas and fully plotting them out, and I'm going to compare a few and see which ones I really like to do. Another thing I'm going to do in this prep period is use short stories to audition ideas for my main NaNoWriMo novel. I've already done one last month, and that was to try writing third person, but in a genre I'm more familiar with. So I did a short story about 1,000 and a bit words just to get oriented, and it went pretty well, so I'm feeling good about that. Of course, the main story is not going to be science fiction, more likely than not, but for a proof of concept, that was pretty useful. I also plan on taking each of my plot ideas and writing a short story using those characters, but set before the plot is supposed to start in the novel, just to see, I guess, kind of like thinking as a character read, or a chemistry read rather, as you might do in film. Now, I've got a few ideas already about what my NaNoWriMo novel is going to be about. Number one, I really want to finally write a romance novel that works. I've tried a few times for NaNoWriMo previously, but I've just never been able to find the right balance between interesting but not too dramatic. Like, either it's really boring and there's nothing to interest me in it, or it's so dramatic that I don't think the romance is going to work. Part of that might just be I have reasonably realistic expectations for a romance plotline, and in real life, nothing happens like the books that I've read, at least. So it could be some tension there. But I think if I just strike the balance just right, I might be able to get something interesting. My second option is a kind of retro future classic sci-fi story where we have a protagonist who starts off in the real world and then is magically transported somewhere new where society is vastly different and technology is different. And it would really set up a great way to examine, the culture and society that we have here and how it could be different just like classic sci-fi novels have done forever. And I'm really interested in this idea. I might try to incorporate romance into it and do both, but also I'm trying not to do a science fiction novel. The reason why this is second choice, though, is because my last NaNoWriMo novel was also science fiction, and I had a really good time with that. And also, I've done a bit more fantasy stuff recently with D&D, so again, trying to be a little different. I think science fiction would probably be the direction that I take this if I'm going to go the genre kind of route. And then, of course, third option would be fantasy, in which I would probably do a fantasy story about self-discovery. I've got a few ideas. Particularly, I'm interested in the idea of looking for someone else, but actually finding yourself along the way. I think I could find some cool things to say there. It's difficult to really put that into words, as you can probably tell, but I've got a hunch that there's something there. I'm probably not going to do it this year, though. And then, of course, I could always do a mythology of my D&D world like I've been wanting to for a while. But right now, my real priority list is going to be romance, sci-fi, fantasy, whichever one of those works out best after I plot them all out. I'll make another video towards the end of the month to let everyone know how prep went and what I've decided, but for now, I'm just really excited to get started on NaNoWriMo. That's probably the main reason why I'm planning instead of just doing it like I normally do. I normally don't put this much effort into getting ready, but I'm just so excited to start that I kind of need something to put that energy into, and that's why you're seeing a video about it. I had a great time with NaNoWriMo last year. I won, I think, a few days early. I don't remember what my stats were like, but I'm hoping for more of the same this year, and hopefully making videos about it will be a good motivation to get it done. But anyways, I think that's all I have to say. I've got a soccer game to go to in a couple hours, so I will see you all later.